Hi everybody, it's Tim Baker. I'm back here with Michael Paul Ingram. We are here to show you another one of the top 8 matches from the top 8 tournament here at Snake Eyes Games for the Modern League. This is actually featuring Mike versus Brad Minielli, and Brad's deck's kind of an interesting take on a blue-white tax deck almost.
Yeah, it's called Martyr combo.
Yep, so let's take a look here. We're going to jump right into game 1 whenever you guys are getting ready here. And, you had your round 1 matchup versus Bryson, who was playing, I believe, Dredge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so and that didn't really take you very long to dispatch him. He had a couple problems with everything that he was drawing, and it just didn't seem like he was matched against your deck very well. So we'll see how Brad fares here.
Okay. He does have kind of a rough time, but there's some things that he does that this deck just does naturally. That definitely puts him in a better position.
Yep. So I mean, Mike's playing his own version of Tron here. You can see right there, Brad's playing a blue-white Martyr list. And I think it is very interesting because it's not. I have a blue-white Taxes deck for Modern, but it doesn't run the combo pieces that Brad runs. So he has kind of that ability to make a quicker kill, where a normal Taxes deck is just kind of stalling the board until they can get something there to work with. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree.
I'm not really sure what's going on here. Did you guys have to mulligan in your first game here? It looks like maybe that you guys were both.
Yeah, I think one of us mulliganed.
Nope. Yep. Yeah. Looks like Brad's putting a card to the bottom there. So.
Yeah, and his deck list is so like his mana curve is so small that it just doesn't really matter for him.
Right.
So.
That's not a bad start for you. So power plant sphere, it looks like. So.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not great. And here he puts like the combo piece into the battlefield.
Yep. So it looks like he fetched, went and got a basic island, and that's his. Oh, okay. Ancient Stirring's probably trying to find another piece of Tron here.
He actually counters it here. With a shoal.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
Yeah, he does stop that. But.
And the focus is a little off on the camera just because we were using 2 cameras at one time, and this was the worst camera out of the 2, so it is a little blurry, and we apologize for that, but you should still be able to see what's going on.
Looks like, as you see here, I am a land behind. I literally did not have another land.
Oh, wow. So you really did need that Stirrings to go. Yep, and looks like Brad brought down, I guess that's a Ninja of the Deep Hours, right?
Yep.
With the Ninja 2 ability, so he got
every time that he attacks me, he's going to draw a card.
Yep. So here's a Sylvan Scrying from you to try to look for another Tron piece. I'm assuming that's probably a tower.
It could be a tower, it could be mine.
We'll find out. Yeah, it's a little glare on there, but at least that one resolved, so it's a step in the right direction. See. Looks like Brad's really taking his time and kind of thinking about what he wants to do here.
Mm-hmm. So he has a lot of different plays and a lot of different things that he can do, but he has a lot of control magic in his deck. So his goal right now is just to stop me from landing any type of threat. And I grab the tower, it looks like.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so, I mean, is his deck more focused on keeping you off of Tron, or maybe keeping you from playing threats after you assemble Tron?
Yeah, I think his game is to slow me down just a little bit in the beginning, and then just anytime I try to play something big, he'll just stop me from casting it. Mm-hmm. And that I think is what he's actually looking to do here, because he did stop my Ancient Stirrings right away, and he didn't know that I only had 1 land. So it was just very good for him. But now I can't even target his things.
Right, that looks like an Unsettled Mariner from Modern Horizons, so which is a nice addition for that deck. So
Yeah, because if you go to target his things, then you got to pay 1 extra. If you don't, it's countered anyway.
Yep.
So, but yeah, the Niv Magus Elemental, the one in the middle there, that's actually the combo piece. So what that does is he runs Flusterstorm in the actual deck, and he'll actually like play a couple spells and then go and counter them all. But it'll actually get Storm, and he'll just exile each copy of the Storm spell, just so he can basically just do what he needs to do.
Yep. Okay, so here's a Worm Coil for you after you went and got your 3rd Tron piece.
Yeah, I think I just drew into it, to be honest.
Oh, wow, okay, that's pretty good.
So, and he's going to start drawing cards here. So he has the ability, I'm not sure what the ability actually is, but you tap 2 creatures in the beginning of turn, you show it, and then you draw a card.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it has to be, two blue or white creatures, I think. Oh, Aether Vial. Okay, so that's going to help them populate the board a little bit. I don't really know that Aether Vial is super good against you.
It's not, but what he just did here is very good, though. He played a Phantasmal Image, and he is actually making his own Worm Coil engine.
Okay.
So
that's a very good play, actually.
Yeah. So he now has a 6/6 lifelink Death Touch Beater for 2 mana when I had to pay 6 for mine.
Pretty good. And I would assume that this is kind of a stale board state for you, unless you're able to drop something here to make a difference.
So I'm tapping 4 mana, and I'm pretty sure this is for a Karn, a baby Karn. And I don't think this resolves. I'm pretty sure he counters it.
Looks like he had another shoal there, yep.
Yeah, he shoal and he pitches a ninja.
Oh, and followed it with the Ugin.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure if he was going to force of negation me, that Ugin would come down and not the other Karn. Because I don't really care about the other Karn, at least not with him. It'll shut off his Aether Vial, but I don't really care about that. I do care about my Ugin, though, because the Ugin can give me extra card draw, which I'm kind of behind anyway, because I was a land behind. It will also allow me to destroy things as well. So I'll need to pay a mana to do that, but I will at least have that option.
Right.
So
yeah, I was very, and it looks like you're waiting here to see if he has a force or something to try to keep that from resolving. But,
I think it does resolve. I think it's me trying to decide on whether I'm going to uptick or downtick it.
Okay.
Because downticking it, I have to pay an actual mana to do something, and I do uptick it here. In which case, it gives me an additional blocker, and allows me basically to make sure that if he does swing in, I have the ability to trade with any of his creatures. And that also means that he would have to outswing everyone in to try to go and kill Ugin.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Ugin actually impressed me a lot during your matches because I had not played him in Tron, and it just seems like it's such a good thing to get that card draw, which normally you're just trying to top deck all the time. If you're playing against those more aggro decks or even a deck like this where you're going to attack with something big, you just get to refill your hand. It's amazing. Yeah.
And so in this position, it is definitely the card I wanted because he starts having a board presence, and the face down card is a 2/2 creature, right? And we basically just stick the face down card. Whenever the creature leaves the battlefield, you stick that card in your hand. But that's whether it's exiled, destroyed, no matter what.
Right.
So we just fast forward it and just put the card face down instead of finding the actual token to put it underneath and then do it from there. So from that point, having the extra blocker there is just really, really good, because that means that if he chooses to attack me with all of his team, I can basically trade the Worm Coils for each other, and then I can trade one of his 2/2s for my 2/2, and then I get that card. So it's actually card advantage for him to attack me, which is why I think he doesn't attack me there.
Right, so it looks like you played a map now and you're cracking the map to go look for something.
Yeah. Most likely it's going to be Blast Zone or Sanctum of Ugin, one of those two things. It's Blast Zone.
Blast Zone, yep.
Which makes sense because I will destroy both his Aether Vials and his Niv Magus.
Right.
And then still have blockers to just not care on what he's about to do.
Right, and it looks like he hasn't really been playing, and I can't really see what, if he has any cards in his hand or not, but just him last turn playing an Aether Vial kind of means that he didn't do a whole lot with that.
So. Well, I know he has his 5-drop in that's allowing him to tap his 2 guys and draw an additional card. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I don't think he has any other plays because he wasn't dropping any other creatures or anything like that. Another Phantasmal Image, like anything to basically try to take over the board. And that's
a big Ugin, and he's going to force a negate that. So if the force negation takes care of him, that would have just been it. Basically, resolved.
Yeah, it doesn't get rid of the Phantasmal Image because right now it's a Catalyst creature. But what it'll do is it will get rid of his other things, and I can down-tick the Ugin to get rid of the. No, I can't even down-tick the Ugin.
Well, I mean, at that point, you're just kind of looking at it as a lightning bolt to the face every turn.
Yeah.
Which hurries that clock around. So. So in case anybody that's watching wondering what happened, Mike did play the Blast Zone, and then he activated Blast Zone right away to get rid of all the 1-drops, which is why, Brad took a couple, both of the Aether Vials and the hybrid creature and put them in the graveyard.
And that's something cool about the utility lands when you're playing Tron as well. So whenever you're playing Tron and you're playing the utility lands, what's really cool is that you can basically go get your lands, and your opponents most of the time will just let you do it. And the reason why they'll let you do it is because they don't care about a land, right? And I'm pretty sure whenever I did that, he was like, oh, because I limit both his things that allow him to put his creatures in at instant speed. Mm-hmm. I also limit his combo piece as well. So, and that's also something that whenever you're facing, like, people playing Alpine Moon and stuff like that, like, grabbing that land and just playing that land and then just having it in as your 1-drop is just amazing. Yep. You just blow up their stuff, and then you just keep on doing what you want to do.
So it looks like... not quite sure what was happening there.
So he decided to roll a dice to decide which one he was going to block with the Wormcoil Engine.
Right.
Now, both of these cards are actually really cool. So one of them was a Karn Liberated, and one was a Walking Ballista.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I don't care which one I get, but I want one of them to do a follow-up play after he used Force of Negation to counter my Ugin. Mm-hmm.
So then again, with the card advantage, you get to make another 2/2 with Ugin, and then you have something in your hand which you just got to play.
Yeah, and I believe it was the Walking Ballista, and it's going to allow me to kill the Wormcoil Engine by just targeting it with a with just one of the pings off the counters.
Right. So you got your Walking Ballista on 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, so you took out the Wormcoil. It would have had damage on it already.
Mm-hmm. Well, no. So whenever you target Phantasmal Image, it forces it to sacrifice.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yep. See, that's an interaction I didn't even think about. But yeah, that would be correct. And then he gets his 2 Wormcoil tokens. But yeah, because it's an illusion, I guess whenever you target it, you have to sack it.
Oh, I know why it comes in with 5, because I have Small Ugin out.
Oh,
and it costs 2 less.
It costs 2 less. Okay, because
I was trying to figure it out.
I was looking at the math, and I was like, something doesn't seem right. But yeah, that is correct.
Yes.
Everything's reduced by 2 if it's a colorless spell.
Yep.
So you basically get a free counter on there. Very good.
Yeah, and then from here, it's pretty bad for him. So we have our Walking Ballista out, which we can just pump up every turn to start picking his guys. He does have his Wormcoil Engines and everything else, but I still have my big worm coil engine that hasn't died yet.
Mm-hmm.
So he has two tokens. I have one blocker that could be any card.
Right.
And I have the Ugin, the Ineffable out, that's giving me either card advantage or a removal spell every single turn.
Right.
So
yeah, Brad not in a great position. Now, I don't know, the Unsettled Mariner, I don't know if it's an ability as well, but do you have to pay an extra?
It is an ability.
So that slows your ballista down a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, every time that I would have to target something, I would have to basically pay 1 each time.
Yep, so Sylvan Scrying here. Going to have 1 colorless left over.
Okay, yeah, I'm grabbing Sanctum.
Yep.
At this point, the goal is just to close out the game and take the game over.
Yep.
Which is going to be pretty easy to do, most likely with the next card. So.
That may be a Karn, I think. Yep, it's a
Yep.
Karn liberated, so you're sacking Sanctum. I'm imagining to go get Ulamog.
No.
Nope. Oh, Emicure the
yeah,
Promised End. Okay.
I was about to say, I was
That'll
like,
do
I
it.
can't remember why I didn't want Ulamog here, because I have to actually pay an extra 2 when I cast Ulamog.
Right.
Because I'm targeting 2 of his things, and he has his Mariner out.
Yep.
But what I can do is I can just take his turn and then force him to attack in with all of his stuff.
Yep.
And then he just loses. There's just nothing that he can do at that point.
Yep. Doesn't seem like he's been drawing very well either. He's been drawing cards, but nothing that was really interacting with what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
So what do you think in Brad's position right here? What do you think is ideal for him? Is there any way at this point that he could make a game of it? Because right now it looks like it's not too good.
Not when I drop the 7-mana Karn, because I still haven't done anything with that. Because all I did so far was crack that, and then from here, I don't. There's a couple options, right? I could uptick and try to take a card from his hand, which is okay, but he's drawing cards anyway,
right?
So it doesn't really matter. Or I could try to take something, but then I got to pay 1 if I go to take something his.
Yep.
Which I choose to do.
Right, I figured that would probably be the best play, is to get rid of that Unsettled Mariner. That way you don't have to worry about paying when you target his other stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then from there, I still have an extra mana. So I then use that, put it up to 4, and then we are going to...
You just start to take his board out, yep.
And we ping the Death Toucher. And the reason why is because I don't want the Death Toucher coming in and I have to trade multiple things with it. Mm-hmm. Now the Lifelinker I can just block with just my normal Worm Coil and be perfectly fine. And he's just losing his entire board at this point.
Yep. Yeah, and the position that you have now, there's no rush for you to do any of that. You can wait until next turn, load up your Walking Ballista again, just because you have such a board presence.
Mm-hmm. And I am attacking with my own Worm Coil engine here because I have 2 blockers. And he basically just chump blocks here. Because he knows that if he doesn't chump block, I can just get rid of that card the next turn. Mm-hmm. And he's just taking 6 for nothing.
Right.
And I think he does scoop it up here. I think it is pretty much over.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what he could be debating right now. Looking at, he's done debating.
Yeah, there's no position that he can be in because the board stage is way overwhelming him.
Right. Generally, I think that Tron is a bad matchup for this deck because you, like I've said many times before, you just have so many resources with Tron. Once you get there, it's really hard to stop everything.
So it is and it's not. His list, his list runs Force of Negations and stuff like that, so he can actually power out a very fast start, right? And if he gets his combo going, he can actually do 14 points of damage on turn 2.
Right. So do you think that's where Brad wants to be against you? He wants to see that elemental out, or I guess it's a weird, actually not an elemental, but you want to see that out so he can start working on that combo and try to get in there as aggressively as possible before you assemble Tron and start to drop things that he can't do anything about.
Yeah, that's exactly where he wants to be. He wants to put himself in a position where he has a couple of beaters that he can just swing in with, have a good bit of chip damage, and then go from there. Because if he can do 4 or 5 points of chip damage a turn and then counter off anything that I'm going to stop him from doing that, then that's how he wins the game.
Right.
So it's not... And he did have multiple counters last game, but I did fight through one of them, and I forced him to counter one thing that I didn't care about, so I could play the thing that I did care about.
Right.
But other than that...
And so here we can see Brad's hand a little bit. You got to see these cards, but it looks like he does have a Spell Sputter and a Flusterstorm in his hand, so he has some counter magic just right off the beginning.
Yep. Yeah, and he does have the Niv Magus Elemental as well.
Okay.
So he has the Niv Magus Elemental and the Flusterstorm, so he actually has the combo right in hand. He just needs a couple of spells to chain into. Right. Or have me cast something, then him cast something, and then him go to Flusterstorm something, and then go from there.
Right. Yeah, because it doesn't really matter. Everything's instant speed. He can do that during your turn after you cast a couple spells to get more counters on his weird. So.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I did not keep a one-land hand this time. So.
Just kind of strange, right? Because that's kind of what I think... Bryston did maybe in that
yes.
last round.
So,
he kept a one-land hand, which was a little bit greedy, and it came up to bite him. So
I kept a one-land hand last game because of a couple of things. So I'm playing Sphere turn 1, which gives me an additional draw, and then I have the Ancient Stirrings, which is going to look at the top 5 cards of my library and grab a land for me anyway. So he did stop that, and when I got the extra draw off of Sphere, it wasn't a land. So I was just forced to just play one land.
Right.
And then luckily I did draw a forest, and I was able to play the forest and then Sylvan Scrying and get myself out of that landlock. But if he didn't stop the actual Ancient Stirrings last game, then I would have been in a far better position than I was early on.
So it looks like he's getting in there with his 1/1 at the moment. We'll see if there's any kind of interactions.
I think it's a 1/2.
Is it a 1/2 to start?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a 1/2 to start out, and it...
I mean, there's really not, unfortunately for you, there's really not a whole lot of interaction that you have at the beginning part of the game with anything like that.
No.
So, I mean, he has at least 3 turns, being on the play that he can try to get in there for something before you really start to populate the board.
Yeah. I could play a Walking Ballista for 2, or if we already sideboarded, which we're not sideboarding this game, obviously, but I had Spellskite my board that I could play for 2. Nothing on turn 1, though. I have nothing on turn 1 that's really going to do anything. Everything is turn 2 or
right,
later.
So with Tron, your turn 1, you basically want to ideally drop a Tron land and, play a map or a sphere or a star, just something to get you, filtered so you can go fetch for other lands around, during turn 2. Looks like Brad's kind of waiting a little bit. He maybe drew something. He has to think about, how he's going to approach this. Because I am sure he's feeling pressure to do as much damage early as he possibly can.
Yeah, I think so as well. Which I think is what is about to happen.
Okay, so here comes something. Spell Sputter Sprite. And he's going to shoal the Sprite, I guess. So that's 2 spells.
I think it's actually something that allows him to discard a blue card, and then it will allow him to, pick up the spell instead of actually doing that. And then what he'll do is he'll Flusterstorm and exile everything, just so he can attack in with now a 9.
Right. So the
power.
Storm of Flusterstorm, you have 2 spells that he cast beforehand.
Yeah.
Plus the Flusterstorm, so that's looks like 8 counters. That
so it's 2 counters for each spell, and so he casts a Sprite first, Then he went and cast his other card.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went and cast his Flusterstorm, which then copies itself for each other card. So it actually makes 2 other copies.
Right.
So it's actually 4 total spells that he can exile with the Niv-Magus, and then that's what he does.
Right. Which is the ideal play for right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what you want to do against this deck, is get in there fast. So it looks like he's been able to do that during this game. And I'm thinking probably a bad thing for him, and you do have Tron, would be if you dropped Karn right here and exiled his creature.
So I have the option to do a couple of things, but I also got to think about what kind of counterspells he still has, because if he has a Force of Negation, I lose at that point.
Right.
So dropping the Wormcoil here means that the Force of Negation is still live, but it can't counter the Wormcoil engine because it only counters non-creature spells.
Yep.
So it's going to force him to basically either have another pickup spell, which he already used, or he has to fly over, which is what's happening here.
So that's a Curse Catcher for him. And you're going to crack your map. So do you think that I would say you're probably not real aggressive at this point, right? The board state.
No, absolutely
the board
not.
state shows that, like, okay, well, you need to kind of hang loose because he gets in with that big guy one more time, you're done.
Mm-hmm. And he did play his card in hand, which was that guy. And so I kind of figured that he didn't have an option for Force of Negation at this point. Mm-hmm. So I go to slam the Ugin. And then worst case scenario is if the Ugin doesn't do anything, then the Wormcoil just stays back. But since the Ugin does exile everything, I attack with the Wormcoil engine, and then I go up in life.
Yep, so that's and that was it for Brad. So again, game 2, different Ugin is a star. He really needed to have that Force of Negation there to make sure that you didn't drop that, because his casting costs are so low on everything, you just down tick and everything's gone.
Exactly. And like some of the stuff isn't low. Like his 5-drop bird isn't low, but he doesn't normally cast that. He normally keeps that in hand to draw cards. And then the ninja is a 4-drop, but that comes in for 2 mana anyway. It's kind of just.
Yep. So I'm assuming that Brad would probably, this is going to be our first game with the sideboard, and I'm assuming Brad's going to do something, maybe put in some more counter magic, take out the Aether Vials because they're probably not real good against you, or do you think he leaves the Aether Vials in?
I think he does leave the actual Aether Vials in. And the reason why is because he plays a 3-drop 5/6 creature that whenever you cast, you got to exile 3 creatures out of your graveyard. And he can Aether Vial that in and just wreak havoc on a Tron deck that way.
Oh, that's right. Yep, I do. I was fortunate to watch some of these matches while they were going on, and I think it's a Scab Ruinator is the creature that he drops with a 5/6 flyer, which really Tron doesn't have a whole lot of answers for.
No.
You have to either exile it with Karn, or you have to hope that you have a World Breaker in your main board. If it would have been those first 2 games that you could block a flyer. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure if you play World Breaker in your main board or not.
I was not playing World Breaker on my list at all for this event. It is something that I swap in and out, but as of right now, for where I think the meta is, I don't think World Breaker is actually needed. So I personally didn't run World Breaker.
I know a lot of mono green Tron lists do run at least one in the main board.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's good. You blow up lands or you blow up artifacts, and that can kind of help. But you also have a big body. So
I have decided not to run World Breaker and instead run Ugin the Ineffable as that extra slot, and it's just so good to run the card. It makes all my other cards cheaper. It gives me extra blockers. It gives me card advantage, and it does destroy things as well. So it's not a reach creature, and it doesn't exile land or it doesn't exile something, but it still helps me out with everything else I want to do for the deck. So as of right now, I'm going to stick for Ugin the Ineffable and not worry about World Breaker. But that could change depending on how the meta changes as well.
Right. Well, I mean, if anybody out there has watched the previous matches that Mike have had, anything with Ugin on it was very impactful. So it seems as of right now that was definitely the right decision to make.
Yeah. Ugin Ugin does. He takes over games, and if they can't interact with him, you're always going to get cards off him. You're always going to be doing something with him, and at worst case, he just kills something.
Yeah.
So and that's its worst case. So
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good worst case scenario. Yeah, but and the side effect of playing Ugin the Ineffable is that all of your colorless spells are reduced, like we saw with your Walking Ballista.
Mhm.
You can drop a star or a sphere for free or a map for free. It doesn't really matter. So we'll see what Brad does. Again, he's down 2-0 right now in a best of 5. So if he doesn't win this game, then he's done, and you move on to the finals.
Yep.
And I don't really know, is there a whole lot that you sideboard in against him? I mean, I saw earlier you played a Baby Karn, or rather tried to play a Baby Karn, which means that you have access to most of your sideboard. So do you board anything in against him, thinking he's going to bring in like dampening spheres or something? I think Wilt's in your sideboard.
Yeah, so I don't really care about damping sphere, and he does actually play that in this game. So I bring in my Thrag Tusks because I want an extra creature, and then if he does choose a copy it, that's fine. He gains 5 life, and I don't really care about his life for the matchup.
Right.
But I want the option that if he goes to bounce it, then I will have an extra creature left over.
And we see here, if you look at Brad's hand, it looks like he has a Ceremonious Rejection in his hand, which is definitely a sideboard. That you
and that's
against Tron
that's really
all
good
the time.
against Tron.
Yep.
Now I am mulliganing here, and he does keep his hand, and I think he only has 1 land here.
I couldn't really see. All I saw was that Ceremonious Rejection.
Yeah.
I thought, oh boy, that's pretty good against Tron. So we'll see how it plays out here. And I believe Brad should be on the play here also, since he lost last game.
He would definitely be on the play. I think I'm deciding on whether I'm going to keep or not. And I do choose to keep, and I bought him 1 card.
Yep.
So.
All right, so here we should see what Brad has. There it goes with the Polluted Delta, goes and gets a basic island, and
He played an 8th.
he played it. Is that an 8th Vial? Yes, it is 8th Vial. Okay,
Yeah, he played an 8th Vial, and I follow up with a sphere the next.
So pretty standard turn 1s from both of you guys here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good turn 1 for both. Looks like Brad drew that Unsettled Mariner. And I think you're right. He may not have another land.
Yeah, I don't actually think he does.
Yep.
And I go to
Oh
play.
boy. Yeah, it's still been scrying, so. Oh,
He will
Judge's
actually
Familiar.
counter it
Yep, he
with
counters
Judge's
unless you pay 1, so that was a good thing for him to have. He's just playing all of the tax pieces that he can. It looks like so.
Yeah, because he wants to slow me down until he gets a 2nd or 3rd land. But that does weaken his resources too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I mean, I'm actually pretty impressed with this deck list as compared to a standard white-blue taxing deck list. This has a lot more utility to it, and like we talked about, you have that big creature that you can attack with as a combo piece early, which normal taxes decks don't have. So he's taking the bio up to 3 here.
Yep, I'm pretty sure this is where he throws in that 5/6 beater.
Yeah.
Which is literally a beating. Like.
Yeah, I mean, there's like we talked about, before this started. There's not a whole lot the Tron can do about that unless you draw something, like Karn that you can exile it. Probably going to get your last Tron piece here.
Yep. Yeah, and then pretty sure this is where we're going to see the Ceremonious Rejection.
So for everybody who doesn't know that card, typically it's brought in a lot against Tron just because it counters colorless spells. So here Mike's trying to play a Karn, a little Karn, and that does not resolve.
Yeah, I don't think he lets any of my little Karns resolve.
Oh, there's the Scabruinator.
Yeah.
So 5/6 flyer.
And I have to look at this
You're
card.
like, uh-oh.
Because I have no idea what this card did. Because I didn't play when this card was played.
Right.
So he put it in, and then he plays Damping Sphere. And
that's a pretty good turn.
This is where you want to be when you're facing Tron. You want to have some kind of beater and then something to limit what they're doing.
Yep. So right here now, Dampening Sphere allows you to not really, tap your land for that extra mana, and you have the Scabruinator, which is a 5/6 flying beater that you're not able to interact with right now.
Mm-hmm.
You probably will be able to pretty soon, being that you almost have 6 mana, but Karn's 7, so he has at least one more turn.
And he does go to ninjutsu here.
Yeah, see, and we talked about this before. I was watching this match at this point, and I instantly thought that was a mistake. For me, if I was Brad playing, I would have wanted that 5 points of damage in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know. I mean, he wanted to get the card because he was short on mana. I can understand where there's pluses and minuses on both ways.
And he can also stick it back in. But I do drop a Worm Coil here, which means that the ninja's not attacking in.
Right. So again, he activates the Aether Vial and puts that Scabruinator back in. So I mean, really, I guess he didn't lose a whole lot. He was able to put that in, probably before the upkeep, right? So.
Yep. Yeah, he put that in at the end step.
At the end step, yep.
So
again, he just drew an extra card. You didn't have a board present, so.
Yeah, he does have me pick up my Worm Coil.
Brazen Borrower.
Right now, it's like really, really good in his favor.
Yep. So we know for sure that that's 11 points of damage that have gone through. He hit you with that Scabruinator twice, and the ninja at least once. So you're dropping the Worm Coil. So now that'll allow you to gain a little bit of life if he attacks with the ninja again.
And then
was that a Veil of Summer?
That is a Veil of Summer.
All right.
So
pretty good.
I did bring those in against him as well because he did have a lot of counter spells. And what that does do is because he did it that way, he also gets affected by his own Damping Sphere. So for him to play anything extra, he actually has to pay an additional mana for it. So he can't actually play anything right here.
Right.
So
I mean, that actually favored you in a way, right? Because he can't ramp up his board presence. He's going to crash in here with the flyer again.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not really going to do a whole lot. I mean, that 5 points of damage is big, but you're just going to gain 6 on the way back with the Worm Coil.
Depending on what I do here. So with that, I believe I do attack with the Worm Coil because I have to, or else I'm just dead to the flyer in the air.
Yep.
But there's a couple interesting things. So the Damping Sphere does slow me down, but it doesn't really stop me from playing my spells, as you're about to see here. And I decide to play Ugin here. And if Ugin can resolve, then we then can take care of his flyer.
Yeah, okay, yep. So looks like he's thinking whether or not that should be able... Oh, and it resolves. Yeah, well, that's a really bad position for Brad then. So he's just way far behind right now because he also tells you with that he has no counter spells in his hand. So you're going to gain the 6 life, and there's no threat for that crackback. Looks like he just took it. I didn't know if he was going to try to block or not.
I mean, him blocking here doesn't make any sense. And he wants to attack me here because attacking the Ugin doesn't give him an extra card.
Right.
So because it doesn't give him an extra card, he's really, really, really trying to get his third land. Because he did have an Ashiok in hand as well.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you saw that.
I did not see that in his hand.
But so he's not drawing any lands here, so he can't play his 3 mana spells, which his deck is all low to the ground. It's not made to play those 3 mana spells. It's made to play 1 and 2 drop spells.
Right.
So having 2 lands is normal, but whenever you start putting in your sideboard pieces and you have those 3 drop spells, like Aether Vial can't stick in Ashiok. So.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I'm assuming that he has more than one of the Scabrunators. So with the Aether Vial on 3, he should be able to play another one of those at instant speed if he draws one. That's the big if, though. It doesn't really seem like he's drawing a lot of relevant stuff. You have 7 mana on board now, which means that you can play one spell. I mean, really, a lot of stuff that's in your deck you can play for 7.
Yeah, well, I can actually play it all for 9. So, because Ugin does make everything cheaper.
Oh, yeah, that is correct. Yep, so everything's colorless, and it looks like you're...
Yeah, and I pay 6 to play
a big Ugin. I would think he needs to have a counterspell here.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm looking at him for. Is I'm looking at him to...
Yep, so looks like you bolted the ninja.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be turn, yep. So he's going to flash in the sprite here just to have some kind of a board presence. And probably to keep your Ugin at bay, even though that's not really going to do a whole lot of anything. He's going to attack you for 1. Possibly having ninjutsu, yep. So he's going to draw a card here, see if he can get his 3rd land.
He does.
Okay. Unfortunately, it's going to hurt him, but he just needs to have any kind of land. I mean, if we look at all lands, I don't know that you have missed a land drop. You having 7 lands, he only has 2, but he's 5 behind now, so that's not in a position that most of the times you can't win from there. Like you said, he is very low in his casting costs, and he could probably cast a lot of stuff, but boy, that board presence doesn't really look like it's in his favor, does it?
and it's not. It's and he does have a lot of things going for him. Like he had a 5/6, he had a damping sphere, and when I did the math after the match, I did realize that he wouldn't have won, even if he attacked me and didn't put in the ninja.
Okay.
But at the same time, because he would still been 1 point off. But at the same time, if I didn't have that Veil of Summer, we were going... I was going to lose that game.
Yes,
like Veil of Summer is what saved me that entire game.
Yeah, I mean, not only did his spell not work, but then it kept him from casting anything else, just because of the dampening sphere. And I think Brad's probably looking at his hand right now and trying to decide, is this something I need to continue with, or am I done?
So I'm pretty sure he does concede,
so
but
he's done,
I do end up telling him that I'm about to play Emrakul: The Promised End.
Oh, okay.
And I have enough in my graveyard
that would
with
explain
Ugin
why are you looking at your graveyard there? So.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, that's the end of that match then, I guess. Mike won. You won that one. So up to this point in the top 8 tournament, you had not dropped a game.
That's correct.
Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. So, that was that match. That actually finishes the semi matches, I believe. Or do we have one more to go through?
There should be one more.
We have one more to go through.
It should be Luke and Dalton, I believe.
Oh, that's right, Dalton and Luke. So Luke did not play in one of the feature matches for the first round. He did end up beating Adam Bruce, who was on Hollow One. So the next video that we do is going to be us going over that video with Luke versus Dalton. Dalton on his own Tron list, and Luke playing Titan Breach, I believe, right?
Yep.
All right, very good. Well, that was a very good game, Mike. You are powering through this top 8 pretty easily. Not a whole lot of people having a whole bunch of answers for you, and I don't really like to play a whole lot of compliments, but I've watched this guy play Tron a whole lot, and me being a Tron player myself, I don't know that I've ever observed anybody that plays the deck's timing better than you. There is an art to stars and spheres, and when you crack them, when you and I've had a pleasure of watching you at a lot of bigger tournaments that we've traveled, together to, and you are really a master at doing that. So,
well, thank you.
Now that's out there in the world, everybody can hear that.
Yeah, there are certain times to crack stars and spheres. Like there's certain decks where you just want to keep them on the battlefield, wait for them to strip your hand, and then you basically it's like a draw 4 in one turn. Or there's different ways to lead out. Like a lot of people want to lead out with a map, but you can consistently, like that one hand that I kept a one-lander hand, I had literally, so I had my draw for the next turn. I had to draw off the sphere, and then I have the Ancient Stirring. So keeping a one-land hand mathematically is correct because I'm looking at 7 cards.
Right.
Because I'm looking at 7 cards, the odds of me hitting, one of the other 8 possible cards that I really want, or even any other land for that matter, are extremely high. So Tron is a math deck. It is something that you can actually look at playing it mathematically, which is why like you run certain things, and that's why there's not a lot of differences when you start looking at Tron lists. Like they run different things in their list, but they're always going to have like spheres, stars, maps, stuff like that, because it wants to consistently have those redraws and those cantrips, so it can mathematically go through the deck, get what it needs, and then play just a couple of threats that are hard for your opponent to deal with.
Yeah, and I think we're probably going to end up seeing a lot more Tron decks here in the future just because of this Double Masters that came out. A lot of Tron pieces, almost the whole deck was printed in Double Masters for the core of it. That
Possibly.
That almost aids people that have been playing Tron for a while, right? Because it's not... on the surface, it doesn't look like a super hard deck to play, but to play it right does take skill and a different type of thought process. So,
yeah, most people they don't like whenever like Blood Moon and Damping Sphere come out and stuff like that, and I actually don't mind it. I talk about it all the time. That like I don't care when my opponent plays those cards. I only care if they have something out to extend out the clock. But if you just turn to play a Damping Sphere and you have nothing else to back it up on, I do not care about that card. I will just play a land, play like mats and spheres, and just start loading up my board to a point that I can just start getting the cards I need, and then we just start playing one threat at a time and let you deal with it that way. Yep. We don't need to destroy those cards to still cast all of our cards, which is unlike when you look at like Eldrazi Tron, right? Because a lot of those things, they need colorless lands. Yep. So they need to go get their waste whenever Blood Moon's out. They need to be able to basically find a specific land at a specific time, which they can't do whenever those cards limit them.
Right.
So that's kind of the big difference between Mono Green Tron and like Classic Tron is what I call it, because it is a control deck. It is literally a deck that you control the battlefield until you can slam a massive threat that is hard for everyone to deal with. And then you also have insane draws where you just start slamming your threats on turn 3. So like decks that don't interact with you and they just want to kill you as quickly as possible. Like you can drop your Wormcoil Engine on turn 3 and that'll keep you alive. Or you can drop a Karn and like take whatever they're using to keep you alive. Your goal for those first initial spells is just to keep you alive until you drop things like Hrop Ugin, Ulamog, Emrakul, stuff like that. So
all right, very good. Well, thank you everybody for watching. We're going to keep on doing these videos and drop until we have the entire top 8 on there. By then, it might be time for Zendikar Rising, and we'll probably be doing some box opening videos and booster opening videos at that point. So thank you very much. Subscribe to the channel so you can get all this content from Snake Eyes. I don't know if Mike's going to, but I'm actually going to go out and play Standard right now, which we do every Tuesdays, and we're still doing Modern every Thursday, correct?
Yep.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, guys. We will see you on the next video.